Hola familia, welcome back to Growing Up Spanglish Season 2. Season 1, we mentioned that we were going to be going from city to city. So we obviously had to start things off with Miami because that's where I was born and raised. So Season 2 is dedicated to guests from Miami, from Broward, from West Palm Beach, and showing love to the entire little area that we've got down here in South Florida. I am your host, Roxy, but I'm going to start going by Rosaline. So every once in a while, I'm going to interchange the two. And then obviously we have our co-host and the producer, KJ.
What's up, y'all? How's it going? Here to encourage the fuck shit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to let today's guest go ahead and introduce themselves.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Mario. I know a lot of people may know me by Telescope Thieves. It's like my Instagram handle and like my musician DJ name for a lot of years in the scene now. So yeah, Mario de Los Santos.
Let's give Mario a round of applause, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What's your nationality?
Yeah, so I was born in San Juan in Puerto Rico, but my parents are Dominican. I was only born there so that I'd be a citizen. That's like my connection to Puerto Rico was like trying to get citizenship. But yeah, my parents are Dominican. I've been here in Miami since I was like 1 or 2, and I grew up in Hialeah mostly.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting because I've known you for a while, but I did not know any of these things about you.
Sure.
So I did not know that you were Dominican, but also...
That's like a common thread throughout my whole life. I'm not even sure why. I've had people always trying to like check my Dominican card, like hard. I'll meet people that are Dominican. They'll be like, "You're Dominican." What bothers me more is people that aren't Dominican be like, "You're not Dominican and you're this and that." I'm like, excuse me. I feel like Dominicans like rep pretty hard. They got the like bandera on their car and they might be driving, blasting bachata.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's not me specifically to be like that way, but
Yeah.
I'm very proud. And I spent a lot of time going there as a kid, like in the summers. And I always joke, like, if there's people that Dominicans that'll call me out and shit. And to me, it'll be funny because it'll be like, they're out there with the flag and all this shit. And then I'll be like, "Oh, when was the last time you went?" And they'll be like, "Oh, actually, I've never been," or whatever. And
I've never been.
I'm like, "Oh, all right, I get it." So to all y'all who think I'm fake, come to DR with me.
I'm just remembering how Calle Ocho, like the festival.
Right.
I never really went when I was younger because by the time that I would have been like able to go on my own accord, my parents would not let me go.
Sure.
So I didn't actually get to go to Calle Ocho until I was like no longer living at my parents' house. I want to know what is Calle Ocho all about. Mind you, though, my parents have pictures of when they used to go to Calle Ocho, and I guess they just wanted to protect me from because Calle Ocho can get a little ratchet.
Yeah.
But I see pictures and they tell stories of when they used to go and stuff like that. And then also granted that probably in the era that my parents were going to Calle Ocho, it wasn't as crazy as what it is now.
And I feel like that's always the perception too of the parents is like, when I was going, it was okay, but now the kids.
But also it was like, I'm pretty sure that it was still some mania going on and you were all up in it. Exactly.
There was nobody there to film you doing crazy shit, so.
Exactly. But I finally was able to start going when I was older. I just really like to be able to connect to anything that is like part of my community. I do remember that I was a little bit taken aback, like pleasantly surprised one year when I went, and there was like a whole block that was taken over, like an entire little shopping plaza. It's on Calle Ocho, but like every street has like different things going on. And so this is already like the end of the festival. There aren't like kioscos or anything anymore. It's like where people are parking and stuff. So it was just taken over the entire parking lot. And you get to that part and it's just puro dembow. And I was just like, what is this? Because I had never experienced that growing up. So like I knew Dominican people, but I never really went to like Dominican parties and stuff. And they took over the whole entire parking of this little strip.
Sure was
and the bocinas on top of each other and the cars like shaking and they're all just there. And it was just like, teteo is the word, right?
You're right. So this is how they're going to call me fake again. Because I learned teteo the other day. Like, Like, I didn't know that. First of all, that word came out like during the pandemic, apparently, right?
Oh,
Like,
okay.
It's kind of a new slang word, so
Okay.
that's why I don't know it.
But where did it come from? What is Teteos?
I had an aunt come, and we were like, they come in, they're like, we got to go to Wynwood. And I want to walk. So we walked around with her in Wynwood, and there's like a restaurant, like a Dominican restaurant there, and it was like Dominican food and teteo. And I'm
That's-
like, and it just, teteo, like, period. That's part of the restaurant is teteo. And I'm like, I just asked her, what is teteo? She's like,
Yeah.
no, it's that in the pandemic when everybody was hanging out and doing the little secret parties in DR where you're not supposed to be hanging out, but people were hanging out. I don't know. For some reason, they started calling those teteos.
Teteo. I need to find. I need to dig deeper.
Yeah, and then it morphed into just any kind of party pachang is un teteo. Like,
Yeah.
teteo de gente. I don't know. So I learned that last weekend. So good thing I learned it. I'm up to date.
Yeah. So I saw that. I thought it was amazing. And I just love how, like you said, like Dominicans go hard for their culture.
And there's not, I can understand how there's not a big community here. It's very limited.
I think the biggest community or the biggest gathering of Dominicans was Típico.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Típico and Boulevard.
Yeah.
Remember Boulevard? That was
Bully.
wild days. Bully days was wild. There was a point where I was like, all right, I got to stop.
Yeah.
It was a fight every time.
Every
It
time,
was
yeah.
wild, yeah.
So I see this collection of Dominicans and they, I mean, it's just like what you picture of a gathering of Dominicans, it was there.
Yeah.
So you had, everybody was there with their like folded like beach chairs. They brought them out. There were literally like big ass hookahs in the parking lot. I'm like, yo, like this is wild. Like they're there. They got their coolers with the presidente, or what I see a lot of Dominicans drink is Buchanan. It's like is that like a whiskey, I think?
Yeah, I think it's
Think
like
so? So yeah, there was just a bunch of that. And so they're just like, I was like, yo, this is amazing. I love this. I love anything that is like a gathering of like people and just like thoroughly like enjoying their
it.
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I think that's one of the things that like always tried to absorb as much of us as I could, because I consider myself like gringuito. Like I would spend a lot of my summers there as a kid, but you go there and no matter how much Spanish you speak or whatever, you're like gringo kid, you're the American kid.
Right.
And I had my own like culture and like ideas as growing up here in America for a lot of things. But one thing that was different was like I always felt that energy of people being so like finding a way to always be in a good mood and happy. That always stuck with me. Like noticing it, like you'd be here and people are a little sadder or a little bit more guarded and stuff like that. And over there, you're walking on the street and someone just says something to you, like that whole community aspect. And I was like, when I'd go to the capital, like I'd go to the, like, I guess the major part of the country, and like still like you're walking on the street and people are like talking to you and stuff like that. Like here, like you walk down the street, nobody says nothing to you. You know, like, so I've always appreciated that, no matter what like conditions are there. Because you also, as being in that half foot in, half foot out kind of person, like you're growing up here and you see all the like the wealth and the like access to so many things, and you go there and you realize, yo, so I'll lose every day. Like you're gonna lose electricity for a while. There might not be hot water. Like the roads are dirt, and people are still happy and they still find a way to be there for each other. And I've always thought that's really beautiful. I guess I couldn't say that it's that different in other Latin countries, but I think Dominicans for sure there's like a happiness and like a community to them that pretty dope.
Yeah, no, Dominicans really are cheerful people from what I've always seen. And the way that Dominicans speak is even just like very like happy, like very sing-songy, if that makes sense.
There's a song. Yeah, it's a song. Every accent is like a song.
Yeah.
And the Dominican song is, it's almost, I'm kind of like about to cry, but it's like, but I'm laughing through the tears. The Dominican accent, like, oh, you saw, you know.
I am always really intrigued, just like linguistics as a whole, of like why certain dialects exist and stuff like that, right? Like we know it's colonization, we know.
Yeah.
But what was the main contributing factor of like why do Dominicans speak like, or like why do Puerto Ricans speak the way they do, or Cubans? Because there are so many different dialects. And it's so funny when you talk to someone that is not Hispanic, they don't understand. If I'm speaking to someone in Spanish, I know exactly where they're from. They don't even have to tell me.
But that does not blow your mind, because like I had someone recently and we were talking about something and we got into the conversation of Spanish, and he was like mind blown a little bit when it got into, oh, so there's like different, like someone who's Mexican or someone who's Colombian, like the accents are different and there's different words. And I'm like, yeah. Like, you think Just like Ireland is different than
Right.
Australia, and New York is different than California,
Right.
and different than Hello, what do you mean? Like, there's so many countries and so many people that speak it. Of course,
Exactly.
there's different accents and different words. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
But-
I think it's so much fun that there are so many different
of course.
accents and dialects and that we can identify each other by
Yeah.
them too. Is that I don't have to know.
Can you? What's the one you can impersonate the best?
Oh man, impersonate? I don't know. You're gonna put me on the spot, but I do know that speaking about when you go back to DR and how they like question you. When I go to Puerto Rico, I don't talk Puerto Rican
Oh, yeah,
Spanish.
of course
So when
not.
you're, you
Talk
know,
Miami
there's a way.
Spanish.
I talk Miami.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Too.
Yes.
Although my Dominican accent gets way thicker when I'm there.
Once you're there for a
and you're
little
like absorbing
longer.
it, you're taking it in, and you're like, all right, I'm comfortable. I can slide into that.
Right,
But,
exactly. So yes, like people don't understand this. Like when I first get there and I'm talking to family and people, whatever, some people think I'm Cuban because when
Yeah.
you're living in Miami
you
for so
absorb it.
long, that's what you
It's just
absorb.
like mirroring, like it's like a empathy thing. I look at it
Yeah.
like that. Like, and some people might look at it like poorly if you're Dominican, so you should speak like this. And
Yeah.
it's really like an empathy thing. I think like you're around so many different cultures, and when you're speaking to someone, I think unconsciously, in order to feel closer to them or to connect better, I think you mirror some of their words and you speak a little bit like them, and them like you. Like,
Yeah.
Like I imagine, like for instance, like slang is like a thing you use to connect with people. Right? There's words that Miami people say that other people don't, and even to the point where I find it interesting, even like almost micro slang or something. Where you ever have a word that you use a lot within one friends group, but not others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I have a friends group where like with them, I mean, you got Pancho and these guys and like Lopelo guys, and like for some reason I don't know where it came from, but like cooking, like just became a thing in our group chat, and it's just like a thing we say to each other. Like, damn, that's just cooking. Like today, like we have an event later, and it's like a rooftop thing, and it's supposed to be outdoors, and you always hope the weather's nice, and I was like, and I just put like, damn, weather's cooking. Like, yeah, fire, like it's good.
Yeah.
Like cooking is a thing we say to each other like a lot.
Yeah. That is true. I'm trying to think of like there's Miami stuff, but I don't think there is Miami slang for sure.
Yeah.
But in like more of a Hispanic community, I think like one of the things that someone is from Miami will be like literally or like super. Like,
Yeah, I'm
those are-
sure if you put a like counter on this video, there's gonna be 1,000 likes from me. I think one of my favorite Miami ones is Mission.
Oh, okay. Like I'm a bus mission.
Yeah, and I remember I had some friends. They were like these DJ friends we had come to town, and I picked them up, and we were like, I forgot where we were going, but there was a lot of traffic, and I was like, oh man, this is about to be a mission. And then
And you were like-
paused, and that was the first time ever. I was like my late 20s at that point, and that was like probably the first time ever that I stopped and was like, wait, Mission, like that's some Miami shit. Like I never.
Do you think BFE is a Miami thing?
Yes,
That's a Miami thing?
absolutely. Yeah,
Do
I
you
think
know,
so.
You know,
Yeah, I'm familiar with BFE. But transparently, it's not something that, because in New York, you'd be like, yo, that's dumb far. Like, dumb far
Okay.
is the translation from
but we say BFE.
BFE, like, butt fuck Egypt. You know what I mean?
That's terrible, dude.
Yeah. Hey, we got to let the people know what that means,
Right.
though.
Yeah, we do
Think
have to.
about how it's fucked up. Like, what do you mean?
But even like the mission thing has changed for the kids. They don't say mission. They say, oh, that's a side. Like, side mission for them now means that's an alternate career. Something you do as
okay.
another hustle. So, like, it has a completely different meaning
thing now. Okay,
as,
okay.
like, being or growing up in North Miami partially. Like when we said mission, oh, you about to go on a trek. Like you about to go
Right.
far.
Yeah,
So
and a lot of things
Yeah.
could be a mission.
Yeah.
Well, people could be a mission.
Yeah.
Yeah, this dude is such a mission.
Yeah.
It's always a thing with him.
I think the most Miami slang that I can think of that nobody else uses is jit. Nobody else uses jit.
That's just Florida. I think
Yeah.
because Broward is
Right, right. Florida
I think that's like a
word.
super Florida word. Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Wait, hold up. You about to tell me
No.
New York
Look,
uses jit?
No, New York does not use jit. New York is definitely kids, son, shit
Okay,
like that.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm talking about other southern states use jit though.
Really?
And even in the Midwest, jit is
No.
a yeah.
I
They
don't
say
ever-
jit,
I thought
but
the-
also
Color me shocked.
jit's translating online now because of like Kodak and Little Tiger
but
and stuff
that's
like that.
different.
That's
That's-
different.
Nah, for sure. The first time I've heard it was definitely Miami.
Yeah.
But that's
Okay.
also before Miami. I didn't go to any other states, other
True.
southern states, so I
Right.
couldn't tell you if it was something that they were doing in Texas. But I am hearing that in other lingos, like in Georgia or even Texas and
spreading from-
Louisiana.
It
from
could,
rap.
yeah, I could see
I mean,
that.
that's the whole thing about, even like you said, like kids might not say mission that much anymore, but like people are like, the internet has homogenized a lot of shit.
That's
Like,
true.
Even music, like that to me is the like on some old head vibes, like
Yeah.
about hip hop. I'm in my 30s. Dudes my age are always like, oh, golden age, the 90s, blah, blah. And I'm also just a fan of music in general. And like, I'm very open to like new genres and new sounds. And I like listening to new bands and new artists. So I've always shied away from the like whole like, oh, kids these days, they don't know what's good. And like new stuff sucks. Like that whole like Theo old uncle take. I try to avoid that as much and I keep an open mind. But when it comes to hip hop, I think objectively the 90s are better. And I think that's one of the big things. Is like in the 90s, you had like for Southern stuff and like Outkast and like all Trick Daddy, like everything from the South, even the South wasn't even homogenized. Like Outkast and ATL, and that sound was different than Trick Daddy and Trina. And like the internet has made that kind of level playing field where it's not really about where you, like the city you're from, your sound. It's more just, oh, I like Drake, so I'm gonna make like Drake type stuff. It's not really regional anymore, and the sounds are blanket, I think.
But it's also transitioning now into, and I think TikTok has a play on that where niches are popping back up. You're starting to see artists that speak to a specific fan base or a specific crowd of people, and it's still not regionalized. It's just people are finding pockets now of I want to hear this kind of thing from that kind of space.
But then your community is like only online. So I think that's what. It's not necessarily a bad thing because I think you, in one sense, you could find like-minded people that you might have never met because before the internet, right? There might be this whole community of like-minded people who are into this really specific thing that you get to actually have community with now on the internet. But then what you lose is also being able to speak to anybody in your area and have this commonality. Like how you can, when you have that same language with like people around you, something is yours like in the community. Like I think an example of that was when like LeBron was in the Heat, and the Heat were like the biggest show on earth at that time. It was like this thing, and like the whole country hated us and this and that. And it was so fun to watch them play, and they were winning a lot. So obviously bandwagon people, there's just a lot more fandom of the Heat at that moment.
Right.
Like you could talk to anybody. Like you could just be like in line at the DMV and dang, you saw a game, and that's crazy, bro. He put 40 points up. That's what, like you could shoot the shit with somebody of a completely different background and age. Like I remember at that time I used to work with these dudes. They were both Haitian and they were like in their 40s, 50s, and I was like in my early 20s. But we would just talk about the Heat all day, you know. And I think that's what's cool about certain things that are like only regional. You know?
Yeah. So when you are here, do you feel like you're tapped into your Dominican community or?
Not really. Like I said, I don't think, especially growing up in Hialeah, it wasn't very Dominican there.
Yeah. Where did the Dominican? Alapata.
Yeah, I actually played in baseball in Alapata for a bit. Like that's the most Dominican shit.
Like when you were younger?
Yeah, when I was a kid.
Okay.
I joined like this league. Like my dad knew this. Dominicans, they know each other in Miami. That's the thing. My dad used to play in like a softball league with a bunch of other Dominican dudes. And one of them had some friends that had a league in Alapata with like kids, and I played there for a bit. But yeah, I was like in Hialeah, like far away from that. So not really. I remember when I first went to New York for the first time in my life.
And you were like, oh my God, the Mecca.
Yeah, no, it was the first time I was just like walking down the street, like, oh, that person is for sure Dominican. Like, Mike, you can have Gator and you can have like Dominican radar. Like, I can pick them out. Like, they can't pick me out. I don't know why. Like, everybody else, I was like, you're not.
Yeah.
And they can't pinpoint me, but I know you. I see you. I know who you are.
How old were you, like, the first time you went to New York?
Late, like in my 20s.
Oh, like when you were already older.
I was an adult,
I thought you were, okay.
I didn't do it, like pretty much like my only traveling as a kid was going to DR. To send my ass to DR. And then once I was an adult, like I would just had working part-times, didn't really have money like that. And then at some point in my mid-20s, I like went to New York for the first time.
So when you were going in the summers, so you were saying that were they accepting?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, you just little comments and you just know you're not. You know what I'm saying? It's not in a very negative way or like that I felt like ashamed or bad, but I know I wasn't, you know, like I knew I wasn't blending in. Like I know I'm sticking out. I'm the other kid. I'm so-and-so's cousin who came from me. Everybody knows. And there's a colmado like at the corner, like my grandma's house. I remember going one summer. There was two colmados, and there was one that I would go to most of the time and one that I never went to for some reason. I always used to go to this one. And then one day I went to the other one, and the guy was like, oh, tú eres de Los Santos. Like he knew I was de Los Santos just by how I looked.
Yeah.
He knew my family. That's the whole, everybody knows each other.
Right.
He knew I was de Los Santos. He knew I was probably American. He pointed me out. Not in a negative way, but like,
you just knew. Yeah.
You're one of them.
You're not one of the regulars. No. Yeah. So then he knows. Yeah. So what was those summers like? What was the most jarring experiences that you had?
I guess I wouldn't say jarring. Like it was pretty wholesome. I don't know, like pretty chill. There wasn't any. I did a lot of roaming around with my cousins, and back then they had. I think they still have it, but I swear Dominicans invented Uber because like they had. It was not a real taxi. They got no license, but it's just you go on the major street and wave your hand, and somebody will stop and give you a ride for however much money it costs to go to where you're trying to go. So my cousins and I would do that. We go out to the main street and jump in un carro and we go to some other part of the town and meet with some other kids and it's like little kids. Like probably a way funner place to be a kid in that time than it was here, I think, because there was more freedom. We were just wandering around. Although in the 90s, you didn't have cell phones and shit. So you could do that in Miami, but you can't just walk around in Miami. If you don't have a car, like, you're stuck in like a certain area and that's it.
I mean, it is interesting that, because I had a similar experience when my parents used to send me to Puerto Rico in the summers, where there was a sense of I had more freedom. But it's funny because the reason your parents leave where they're from is because they feel like it's not the best environment to raise you in. But then you get sent back and you're just allowed to do.
That's because the people that stay behind are like, this is chill.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So like I used to like, I also felt like safer in a way. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe because it was just like, maybe it was like an ignorance of mine of these are all my people. So, and by all my people is like, we're all Puerto Ricans here. So like, they're not going to harm me. Like, it was just like never a thought that crossed my mind. But I do remember that, like, I used to stay with my mom's aunt when I would go. And so there's like, Centro, right? That's the middle of the little town. Like, you're already in a little town. And then there's like a plaza in the middle of the little town. And so that's like where everything happens. So it's like the church and like a little supermarket and like whatever. And so like I would leave my great aunt's house and then I would walk to the plaza and there was like a place that sold like dollar pizzas and coolies, which are like Slurpees. Coolie was the brand. So we just call everything by a brand.
It, like a granizado kind of thing?
Like a Slurpee, like a Coca-Cola Slurpee. But I guess the brand was, the machine was probably called Coolie. And so we just called it Coolie. Because that's just how Hispanics are. Yeah, I would go buy my thing and then walk back. And nobody ever questioned me or nobody ever said anything. And like also on the way there, I probably bumped into 3 cousins and an uncle. But also in hindsight, realizing that there were like tecatos on that corner. And like I never thought twice about like, you know, like you don't think about it. But back home, I would not have walked to the McDonald's down the street by myself.
It's the fault of Univision, right? Like they 24 hours, they got our moms like watching, yo, it's just murder and rape. Every corner of Miami is just a robbery, a rape, a murder. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is that crime. They like 24 hours of that. They're probably like, yo, don't go outside. Like I was talking to my friend who's a little younger than me, and it was crazy because we were talking about like some stuff about growing up. And my mom, like there was a couple summers that I didn't go. And, you know, growing up in Hialeah, the Hialeah park system is dope. Like they had this public park system and you just show up, somebody working, they'll give you a basketball. Go play. And my mom was working. So 8 a.m. on her way to work, she would just leave me at the park. 5 p.m. when she got out of work, she picked me up. And
you were at the park all day long.
There's no cell phone, no beepers. Just here, survive with this $1 I'm gonna give you.
$1?
Yeah, like $1.50. I'd go to McDonald's and get something.
Yeah, like back in the day when you could get something. When there was like 49-cent cheeseburgers.
But yeah, I think I look back now and I'm like, that's would never happen now.
Yeah.
Just leave your kid for 8 hours and there's no, you hope they're alive when you come back.
Yeah. What park were you like around?
The one I used to go to the most was Bucky Dent.
Oh my God. I just knew you were going to say that. How do you actually say the name of that park?
Bucky Dent. Yeah.
Bucky Dent?
Yeah. I mean, it's a dude. It's like a white guy's name.
Yeah.
Bucky Dent.
Because my cousins grew up in Hialeah. And I never knew the name of this park because this is how my cousins say it, Bucky Dent Park. Bucky Dent Park.
Damn, okay.
Like,
it is Bucky Dent.
What's Bucky
And they say so, and that's what it is.
And I don't know how you spell that, so I just never knew.
It's like a white guy's name. It's like Bucky Dent.
Dent, yeah. Like so they're like, no, we're going to Bucky Dent Park
or something. I don't know, but yeah, I went to middle school and elementary school.
I think he's gonna say Bucky Dent Park.
Yeah. Bucky Dent was tight. They had the swings, they had the basketball courts. You just walked around, hung out. They had the McDonald's down the street.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Did you ever get yourself into any trouble?
Not really. That age, I was a little kid. I was like 8. What I was doing all day was like, me and my friends would get on the swing and like, you push each other to see, then jump off the swing and see who flies the
far.
far. That's what we were doing. There was like, I remember like in the sand under the swings, we would find like the little weed bags because like little teenagers in the area would come smoke weed at the park at night. Right. But I don't know. I was like 8.
Yeah. Were you an only child?
No, I have an older brother.
Was he there with you? Did you both get dropped off?
My older brother just didn't hang out with me when I was
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And your mom didn't make him watch you?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, actually, I think sometimes he would be, but he'd just be off.
And be like, peace out, I'm out.
I'm not hanging out with little kids. Like,
yeah.
He's 5 years older than me, so if I was 8, he was probably like 12, 13, being a cool kid.
And it's too cool to hang out with his 8-year-old
100%.
brother.
So I had my own little friends, and we play on the swings, and he would go off, do whatever, you know.
I guess that it worked out for your mom, right?
Yeah.
That you didn't get kidnapped, or worse, that you didn't like get into the wrong crowd, because that was a risk she was taking.
Fair. I think like people don't give kids enough credit for how much sense they have. You know what I mean? Because
you're
like,
also a boy, though. I think I'm looking at it from the perspective.
But there was girls there too.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that though too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, there's the show on Netflix, I think, where it's like in Asia or something, and it's like the 2-year-olds like going to run groceries.
Oh yeah.
And stuff. So it's like, some cultures believe in self-sufficiency. Some cultures are just like, no, we're going to coddle. We're going to hold them.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's definitely, trust me, there's definitely people out there who just judge your mom. Yeah. And then there's other people who are like, oh, that's nothing. That was light. You know what I mean? It's just the times have changed also. So
yeah, my view is limited to being a girl, the youngest out of 3 girls with a very protective father. So yeah.
That's fair. Don't get me wrong. My mom, like in high school, like for instance, that's when you start like staying out late and stuff. And my mom used to blow my phone up. Like my other friends, like their moms did not give a shit. And my mom was like on my ass.
Yeah.
Like, yo, where you at? And cool. Like, I'm not going to pick up. So she's not like super aloof either. But I think it was just the times she was working. She had to do something. The parks were there.
Yeah.
You know? There was some adults at the park. My mom and my dad are still married too.
But your dad was also working,
my dad
basically.
was working too. Yeah, my parents, that's one of the threads of my childhood was like we were never like poor or anything. Like, my parents always worked and they worked together. So they were a unit. So the house was a little more stable in that sense. But they were always working a lot. And they work in healthcare. And when they came from Dominican Republic, for a while, they were working jobs, but they were at night also going to school because all the certifications they did in DR didn't count here.
Oh,
so it took them years to get back into the healthcare like that. So a lot of my childhood, they were like working, and then at night they'd like be at school or work. So like I spent a lot of time like with my cousins or like just doing my own thing in a way.
Yeah.
Just because of necessity, like they were on that struggle. Which I look back at now and I'm like, now as an adult, I'm like, it's insane because I get off of work and I'm not trying to
want to do shit.
And they had 2 kids and they had the 2 kids and they were studying and it's took them years to like do this, go to these schools and pass these boards again to like do shit. And I get off of work and I'm trying to be on my ass. Like, I'm just, it's wild,
I don't want to do shit. I feel that 100%. I was thinking about the other day and I was just like, I'm so tired when I finish work that like, because there's also this like, I guess guilt that you feel of like, I really should be like, I've got hours in the day. I should be doing something else. But there's also this like kind of hustle culture. You should have multiple streams of income. And how are you going to become a billionaire by the time you're 40 years old? And it's, I should be doing something else with my time.
Would you want to be a billionaire though?
I don't think that I could amass that much money and then also be able to use it by the time I die. And I don't have plans to have children. So who am I living these billions to? Like my kiddos, like my nephews and my niece that are going to be good by my parents and their own parents. They don't need my billions.
Think about all the people you hate. Man, their dad is like some billionaire and they've grown up and they've never lived a normal life. They've never needed money. And then just who your kids will be. Like no matter.
But also like we always think that money is going to make everything better or that those people have better lives.
Sure.
But then if we're talking about like a celebrity culture, like the kids of those rich and famous parents are never happy.
Yeah.
Are like in and out of rehabs or in and out of jail or caught up in some bullshit. So it's just like, I think as humans, we're just always going to find a reason to be miserable.
Yeah.
Like we're always going to find a way.
100%. I mean, even in my life, like I feel like that's something I've struggled with, you know, where like it's this, I guess it comes from also there's that connection to like always knowing like the struggle your parents went through, the struggle that like some of your family goes through in like your home countries and whatnot. And, like you grow up a little bit, I think, with this little bit of a guilt of like, oh man, it's so easy for me. You know, and there's times where like you're fucking up, you know, when you're like 18, 19 and just being like a fuck up. A lot of 18, 19-year-olds who like are trying to figure it out. But then on top of that, you're like, oh man, when my mom was 19, she was like busting her ass and getting like doing this. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just something
survivor's remorse.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like the concept of like, why me? Why am I so lucky to have
100%.
the opportunities? And then I think like also all of us being immigrants, we feel the guilt of so-and-so did this for so-and-so to be able to get here, for me to be able to set up a foundation in this country to start something completely new and different than them. So
for
like
me to be able to have the choice that I don't have to do a second job when I get off my first job. Like I'm not in that position. Yeah, it's true. But I also think that like another thing to consider is with your parents having had their jobs and then go to school for the certifications and also taking care of 2 kids and a household, they knew that there was going to be something rewarding at the end of all of that, which was going to be like maybe a better position, which would mean more money for them and so on and so forth. But I think that like our generation struggles with, I'm going to do that and I still can't afford to live on my own.
Yeah, it's a whole different game.
It's a whole different game.
You want to know how much my parents, when they finally bought a house, how much it was worth? It was,
the house that they purchased or the house? Okay.
The house, like when they bought it, like how much they paid for it, basically. $130,000.
The house that your parents bought.
Yeah. They still live in the house. It's a nice house.
Yeah.
3 rooms.
Yeah.
Got a backyard.
And what year was this?
This is late 90s probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a kid. I was like going in high school at that point. Because at that point, we'd always rented and moved around. And then like they finally had the money for it. Yeah.
Did you buy a house in Miami Lakes?
Yes, that's
I
what
did. Because people go to Hialeah, but then the upgrade is Miami Lakes.
And that was like right when like it was still not, it was actually still Hialeah at that point. When we
and then they changed it.
Yeah, they changed it. It got a little fancier and more like blah, blah, blah. Like after they bought the house, because it was just like, it was still part of Hialeah. Like it was my...
What, like high school was?
Goldman was right there, yeah.
Oh, okay, Goldman, yeah.
And so when they bought it, it was early enough that there was still not a lot of development there. There was a big portion of the neighborhood was still like a forest. Like it was still...
With the cows and stuff?
Yeah, it was still Hialeah. It was still, your mail said Hialeah for years until then it became Miami Lakes and they started putting up some of the fancier areas of it and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, and so I often think about that too, because yes, the survivor's guilt kind of thing, but then also just feeling guilty, like I should be doing more with my time, but also what is that going to amount to for me while I'm here on this earth? Because like inflation is a bitch. Yeah. Like there's just so many things that it's a lot harder these days.
Yes, it is. It's
for us.
And I think that's maybe at the end of the day, that is the luxury they've given us, is the chance to not just be about survival, right? The chance to like not just be about like get as much money as you can as fast as you can. Like, we're able to think a little bit beyond that, but that's because we started off of their backs, you know? And like we are standing on their shoulders. And now we're like at another place where we could be like a little bit more, but what about my work-life balance? What about eating nutritionally? And what about making sure I'm working out and getting my walks? Like all these.
Right, exactly.
What about traveling? And
was there ever like a pressure of you following in your parents' footsteps as far as like healthcare or just having a specific profession?
Not really. That's the kind of interesting thing. Like, I got really into music and my parents, God bless them, were just kind of cool. Like, whatever, do your thing. Like, consider myself now like a little semi-retired from music. But yeah, they never really pressured me to do what they did or do anything really. Like it was a lot like, go, whatever, do your thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When did you really start tapping into like music and then deciding that's what you wanted your profession to be?
It was, it was something I was interested like by middle school. And then I went to a vocational high school, the Miami Lakes Tech. So I went there.
And what did you pick?
Actually, so I used to, growing up, my favorite thing to do was draw. Like that was like the nerdiest thing I was into. I just loved to draw as a kid. 8th grade came and the people from like Miami Lakes Tech was like a new school, vocational school. And they're like, hey, if you want to come to school, all you got to do is write an essay. Like it's still a public school, but they're like, you got to want to be there kind of thing. And they had like the vocations. So I did, and I went for graphic design. And so the first year, you don't really take any classes in your like career path yet because it's like 9th grade. So you're just doing like your electives are like a couple more prerequisites or whatever. And within that year, I joined I met my friend Jamie, and we started a rap group because that was what you did.
Oh, you
know?
started a rap group?
Yes.
What was the name of your rap group?
Odyssey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Where was your music like being? I don't know what.
I mean, this is
what was that?
2001. So like,
Was that? Could you put music on Napster?
Not really. Unless
How did you? How was music released?
No, all our music was just not released. It was just like it was just like somebody making a beat, and we would have. So we had songs. We would write stuff, and then because we got into that, we started to write songs together a lot. I switched my thing to sound engineering.
Oh, okay.
Like, before the year ended, they were like, okay, so next year is when you start doing your classes. So if you want to keep what you signed up for, sure, but if this is your chance.
Oh, wow.
And I switched to sound engineering.
Kind of cool that you had that option.
Yeah. And so I switched to sound engineering. And then from then on, like I had the next 3 years, the way it worked was like you didn't have vocational class. Like you didn't have electives.
Okay.
Your
it was
two elected,
solely your career.
It was always your career. So your 2 extra classes were always your career. So I was with like the same group of kids, with the same teacher for 3 years. Shout out to Mr. Grau. He like took a bunch of little knucklehead kids that all we wanted to do was rap and actually, hey, music is notes and listen to this other thing and here, let's fiddle with these mics. So just throughout that, it became like a thing for me.
I'm so curious. What was the inspiration? Like what music or artist like really was like, I want to form this group Odyssey?
I don't know. Like I was just like a little hip hop kid. Like it was the 90s. Like it was just funny because it was like I picked one of the binaries because, in the 90s, in Hialeah specifically at least, and I'm sure in a lot of Miami and other places, like you were a rocker or a rapper. Those were the categories, right?
Those are your options.
Yeah, here you
Pick
can
one.
be into rock and you could be one of the weird kids, which I liked the rock stuff, but I had to keep that on the low because if not, I was gonna get bullied. Or you could be into rap, and I just happened to be more into rap anyways at that time. And I was just a little hip hop head kid, and, like really liked it, and just started to write rhymes and stuff, and try to freestyle and
was there like someone specifically you were trying to emulate?
I don't know if I could name like my favorite rappers at the time. They were all just like your classic, your Wu-Tang and your Nas and
oh, okay.
Jay-Z,
so you were like, okay, gotcha.
And your Mos Def and Talib. I liked a lot of the backpacker stuff, like Mos Def and Talib and.
So you were really focused on lyricism.
Yeah, what's funny is that I've gotten way more into Southern hip hop as I got older. But at the time, so like when I was in elementary school, the only hip hop was East Coast. There was a little bit of Southern and a little bit of West Coast.
But you're most influenced by...
East Coast was like the biggest thing in the early to mid 90s. It was just like East Coast. That was the hip hop. And I remember like when I got to middle school, all of a sudden Juvenile and like Hot Boys, that stuff started to become really popular. And I was into like Outkast and some of the more like lyrical South guys, but like to me I was like, nah, I was like already like a little snob.
Oh, okay.
I was like, nah, those guys are not it. You know what I'm saying? And then my friends, like 3-6 Mafia was becoming a thing and I liked it. And so I started to ease up on my stance.
Yeah.
I mean, the lyricism was always the thing for sure.
So is Drake hip hop? Is the question?
Oh man, like the most. I disagree with Mos Def. I love Mos Def.
You disagree?
And I disagree. I think it is hip hop. It might be commercial and it might be trendy. It might be poppy, but it means he's rapping. It's on beats. I don't know. That's the only classification for me. Hip hop has always been really diverse musically, right? Because you're sampling and you're making. There's different producers. There's never been like with rock music, grunge or whatever. You have your band has to sound like this, and you have a guitar and a bass player and a drummer. And hip hop, your beat could be anything as long as you're rapping. So to me, he fits what the category is. He's rapping on a beat. That's it.
Yeah.
It's hip hop.
Because I could tell you're a fan of hip hop in that way. There's a doc called Hip Hop Por Siempre, and it's essentially around the Latin fusion of hip hop in it. And I was going to say, do you listen to any of the artists who would be classified as Latin but then do hip hop? So like Nori, Fat Joe, Big Pun, are those any of your influences when you're growing up?
Of course. Like Big Pun was the shit, and like his first couple albums were like formative years. Like he was coming out, like that was like when I was in middle school. Like heaviest hip hop era for me was that, like middle school, high school. Like that was after high school. I took a break from hip hop in a way, and also I think it was the right time because it was like 2006, 2007. It became like the Snap era.
Oh, it was like all the dances.
Yeah, and not that I think a lot of that stuff musically is dope, and like the beats are crazy, and but it ceased to be like interesting for me.
And then Drake came out.
Yeah, and then saved hip hop.
And then saved
brought us all back.
Right.
But yeah, that's when I really started to just explore other genres, and like I went to audio school after high school, so I was doing audio, and then I went to audio school, like an audio school, and there I met like a lot of different people that were like into different things, and like my mind really started to like expand. I joined a band for some years.
Were you in the band?
The band thing was like totally by chance in a way. So I was at that point, like I said, I was just a little hip hop kid. I had already given up like rapping, but I was into,
Odyssey was no more.
yeah, but I was into like making beats, and that was my thing. And but I didn't really play any instruments, but I was into making beats. And I ran into a buddy of mine who I like grew up with in elementary and middle school, and I hadn't seen because he went to Goldman, like a lot of my friends did from Jose Marti and Ben Shepherd, but I went to Miami-Dade Tech. And so at that point, I ceased being around all the people I grew up around because my elementary and middle school were like across the street from each other. So everyone I knew from like kindergarten, I knew to like 8th grade, and then all of a sudden I was like brand new.
Yeah.
So I ran into him after high school and hadn't seen him in years. He was also like my cousin's neighbor who I used to like, whose house I used to stay at after school. So like I knew him my whole life. He was like, yo, like my friend plays in a band. I'm gonna go tonight. Like we should go hang out. And I was like, yeah. And at that point, like I was just a little music nerd, and like
anything goes, yeah.
like I didn't have a job. I was like, oh, do you want to go be at a band space? Sure. Like anything music, I was there.
Yeah.
So I went and I just started hanging out. It became like a thing where I would go hang out and the band would be playing, and it wasn't my thing, like, you know.
What kind of music was it?
It was just like rock music.
Oh,
like,
okay.
But like dancey, like late 2000s, like Block Party, some of that really like more dancey rock stuff. And it wasn't like really my jam, but it was fun to hang out and be around instruments and stuff. And
what was the name of this band?
This band was called Saga High, and they had like this really big show coming up, and the drummer was like this old Cuban dude, whatever, and was just like, nah, I'm gonna go on a cruise with my wife, bro. Like, I don't want to play the show. And they were so sad because it was gonna be like their biggest show ever or whatever. It's gonna be at this ad. Do you remember that place next to Space?
Which one? There was
can't remember the
Nocturnal?
name. No. It was like a venue. They had concerts there. It was like
he's talking about the stage.
No, the stage was
right
further.
Next to Space. I remember it, but
oh no. Not 1306.
No,
but it
that
used
was
to be
around
Eve.
There. We played there too.
Oh, can't remember, dude.
Yeah, but the point is, he was gonna go on this cruise, and then I had been hanging out with them.
And that was your chance. That was your big moment.
They just asked me. They were like,
but did you know how to play the drum?
No, this is the thing. It wasn't that I was gonna drum for them. They were like, can you remake all of our drums like on your beats? Because they knew I made beats.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, whatever. So I got my laptop in 2 weeks. I sat with them and recreated all their drums like on my computer, like with like beats and stuff. And then I played the show with them, and all of a sudden I was in that band. They got rid of the guy, and then I was the drummer electronically, and I started playing keyboards.
That's so cool, though.
Yeah, and then that was the next handful of years. I just did the band thing, and it was a fun time. And I also got into a lot of different music because of that crowd of people.
So it's so interesting because you go from hip hop to dancey rock, whatever you want to call it.
I always struggled. There wasn't like a super specific genre to it, but
but I find it so interesting that Dominicans being so known for their music didn't really have any inspiration in like your musical, or thus far, maybe it did at some point. But like throughout those formative years where you're discovering what you like, and then also it's like literally inspiring your musical journey, like that type of music wasn't really a factor.
I don't think it was in like a conscious way. Probably like subconsciously as far as like rhythms go, because I've always liked things with like dope rhythms. And that's stuff I started to gravitate to later on, especially when I started DJing more and like finding like Latin rhythms and like house music and stuff that had like groove to it.
Yeah.
And I started to realize like, I think I was telling my girlfriend this the other day, I was like, oh, I think I realized like the combination of things that like hits my soul always. Like when a song is very groovy but also sad, like that combination of things is like gold to me. Like I don't know why. And then I think, like that's what bachata is.
That is
like,
what bachata is.
OG bachata is you're on the floor drunk.
Córtame la vena.
Yeah,
like,
but it's grooving though too, move, but you're also sad. Like
no,
that
you
combination.
have to dance. You don't listen to a bachata and not start swaying your hips and like.
But there's a sadness to it.
There is a certain
and I think that combination.
Bachata is like country music.
It is.
If you think about it.
You know they used to not play it in the radio in DR, right?
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah. Originally it was considered like hood music. It was like or shit from the campo. Like they thought it was like not classy to be on the radio.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they wouldn't play bachata. And I think when Juan Liguera did Burbuja de Amor, like it was, he
elevated the sound.
He brought some strings and made the lyrics nice and slowed it down and made it palpable and like very classed it up, dressed it up. That was like the first bachata that got played on the radio was his song. And then that kind of opened up the gates to other
I did
more
not
stuff.
know that. You've taught me something new.
Yeah.
Burbujas de Amor is a classic.
I know.
When you, that's what I was gonna say. Because when you really listen to the lyrics, it's so funny. We spoke earlier about how like things your parents would be like, oh no, and on my day and back in my time, and you're like, have you heard the words to this song?
No, they're just like, oh, but they were like more
romantic.
It was more like, I was like, I don't know, man. You're just like the romantic salsa too.
Yeah, like those songs were pretty. Yeah, they're pretty intense.
What is this? What's the one where like, he's talking about his like bed being wet and stuff like that? Tipo,
I was gonna say Lluvia.
Those videos, como la lluvia. Oh man!
But who's the I know what song you're talking about. Yeah.
Devórame otra vez.
That's yes.
Like,
yeah.
They were just like, damn, devour me.
Yeah.
Sure,
It's
right.
like,
Fuck.
yeah, they're pretty intense, these songs. But that's interesting about bachata. I did not know that, and that's pretty cool. Just to know, the music, how it elevates over the course of time. Because in this day and age, or like from my knowledge, I would say that bachata is the like definitive sound of DR.
Yeah, in a way, to me, merengue is still the one that I would say for sure bachata is way more like global at this point.
Right.
There's artists that aren't Dominican doing bachata songs.
Yeah.
And
Ooh.
I don't know. I've heard a couple on the radio. Like
they don't fuck with it.
I don't even want to know their name.
You know who I
like,
really care for? Damn, it sounds.
I'm gonna come back to Rosalia during the bachata.
Bruh.
Yeah.
No, I didn't really care for Prince Royce.
That's totally fine with me. Yeah, Aventura and stuff. It's all right. I like
Wait,
the
do you
old
love
bachata.
Aventura?
Not really. I like old bachata stuff, like Mario Santos and stuff like that.
Okay.
The OG shit. I love that stuff.
Really? Damn, because Aventura really dominated.
Yeah.
I don't really think, as far as that commercial. So we're talking back about like commercial.
They're like the Drake of bachata.
They're the Drake of bachata. Drake and Aventura actually, or Romeo.
That's like Drake on Drake.
I actually really like that song.
Yeah,
they did it. They did their
They
thing.
know how to make catchy music.
Right.
And like some of the Aventura songs are super catchy. They're gonna get in your head. Like
damn, but like,
but it's just that it's not my soul. It's not for my soul. You know what I'm saying? Like
their whole albums be hitting.
Yeah, you could put on a Drake song. Look, I played plenty of Drake in my DJ sets, and some of the songs I'm like the beats are hard. His flow is really perfect, and it's a really good song for the club. Now. And it's 4 PM, and I'm driving. Am I gonna open my Spotify and put Drake on?
Honestly, there's some 4 o'clock in the
Not for me.
afternoons where I could put So Far Gone and just let it ride out. You know what I'm saying?
That's fair. Actually, you know which one I did bump? I'm not gonna lie. Is the If You're Reading This Is Too Late.
Okay.
That one I did fuck with.
From beginning to end.
Yeah, that album was dope. I love you most stuff, but some of this shit is hard.
Yeah.
Can't hate. I'm not a hater. That's the number one thing, especially with music.
I wanted to touch back on something you said, because you said you're almost retired from music. What does that mean right now?
Yeah.
And are you going to continue to do music? What are you into these days?
It's touch and go. For me, the pandemic hit pretty hard in that sense. It was something that music was my identity in a way. Like from middle school, starting to touch the surface. Like
to the extent where when we were putting together who we were going to have, and Glenny's kept saying Mario, and I was like, who the fuck is Mario?
That's totally fair, yeah.
But then she was like, Telescope Thieves. I knew that your name was Mario, but no one ever says, hey, Mario.
It was who I was for a long time. Like, I'm talking about...
When did you give yourself that name?
That came about... Actually, it was part of the band era, because we were in the band and we were going through like a change of a couple members. A couple people were like stepping away, and we're just like rebranding. We're gonna get a couple new people and try different sounds and stuff, and we're trying to come up with a new name. We're just like, fuck it, let's get a new name. And Telescope Thieves was a name I proposed to the band, because I just came up with it and I really liked it, and like nobody liked it. And then I was like, all right, and I just took it for myself. And I started using it as like when I would make, because like after a while of doing the band stuff, I started to get back into some of the stuff that originally got me into music, which was making beats. And I wanted an outlet for that. So I used Telescope Thieves to start producing beats and like just making music that wasn't necessarily for rappers, but it was just like stuff that like whatever came out, just whatever my creativity was by myself, alone at 2 a.m, it was Telescope Thieves. And through that, I played some shows of just my music, original music and stuff like that. And after a while, after doing a handful of those shows, people would ask me to like, oh, also, could you DJ too? And I'm like, and I just started to do that too, and that's how it all fell in. But yeah, it was, like I said, like there was a lot of eras of different types of music making. I've worked in studios. I've worked in like live audio, like music in general was just like my identity. And the pandemic hit and I had no income. I had no way to make any money. I was in my 30s already. Like I've been doing the Love Below for 7 years at that point. It was just like a hard time like it was for a lot of people. I didn't know. I actually at the beginning thought I was gonna make so much more music because I had
you had time.
Yeah, and I had stopped making a lot of stuff because I was just DJing a lot, and like when I would get home, I wouldn't have the effort to like go and make something on my own. And I'm like, oh, finally, I'm gonna get back to producing, and just like the weight of everything that was going on at the time blocked all of that. Like nothing felt.
You didn't feel inspired?
Yeah, nothing felt inspiring. Nothing felt like, dude, the world was like gonna crumble at that point. Like those marches, like COVID was killing people. It just felt like I couldn't find the purpose in it at that point. And I still haven't really found it again. And I shifted. I started to learn how to code, and like I got a job doing some software stuff. I work from home, and like my priorities changed in a way, and like my life is totally different right now. Like I'm super like retreated back into who like I am, which is a very cocooned, shyer person. And I learned how to speak a little more and be around people more when I started DJing. But I've always been very like introverted and to myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like the pandemic like took that muscle that I had worked out to be like outgoing and speak to people and put it in atrophy. Yeah, it's if you've been working out and you stopped for a year, like you got no gains anymore. You got no muscle. That's what it felt like. And in a way, I've melted into a space where I'm like a little bit of both now, and I still have my hand in like the Love Below, and like we have an event today, and like I'll DJ once in a while, but it's not really something that's on my forefront right now.
Yeah,
I'm like in another place.
But are you happy?
Yeah, I'm very happy. That's the thing, and that was part of the decision too, because I felt like the good thing about the pandemic and that time, even though it was sad and a lot of things were very stressful for me, it was also a time to, when do you get like all this free time to like really reflect on like how happy you are or what your life is at the moment. And if things were different and I could DJ full time and like, you know, make a little more money and be a little more stable and not have to chase people for checks and not have to do this and not have to be like, and one thing was like also missing a lot of time with friends and family. I started realizing that like a lot of times like your schedule is completely different from like your friends, your family. Yeah, 'cause
you're like a night owl.
Yeah. My parents have gotten a lot older. I got a little cousin, my cousins with little kids, and a lot of these events that like, hey, we're getting together Saturday at 6 p.m. or whatever, and we're gonna make a sancocho. And I'm like, oh man, I have a gig at 8, and oh man, do I want to get up and at 12? Usually when I have a late gig, I would chill all day because I'm gonna be out till 5, so I don't want to do shit in the daytime. I don't know. So I think where I'm at now, I'm like, I just feel way more free in a way, even though I actually have a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
In a way, I also feel more free because
when you have the financial stability, it does give you a sense of freedom for sure.
Yeah.
But I totally see, you know, where you're coming from with the whole pandemic thing, because in a way, it was like a sigh of relief. It sounds very there's like a juxtaposition, right, between those two things.
Like it feels weird.
It feels weird to say
what was positive about it for you.
But there are a lot of people that forced pause in their life really helped shift gears and also, like you said, reflect. What am I doing? Where am I going? In a way, like even this podcast, I started parties in Spanglish first because I knew that was what was going to grab people's attention to building a community. But the idea was always to really get rooted into our stories and just issues within the Hispanic community. But like, then the parties just took off. And I think I almost did it for 2 years. I went to New York with it for a little bit. And then literally the last party that I had was the December before the pandemic hit. And so in a way, I was kind of like, oh, thank God. Yeah. Because it's just like, you know what I mean?
You get wrapped up in it. Like, even with like the Love Below and like DJing in general, like for years, I was just like, my thing was making music that I wanted to make. And when I started to DJ little by little, I stopped making music entirely.
Altogether,
you know? And now I'm at a place where if I am going to do some music, I don't want DJing to be the main focus. I want it to be like a thing I do from time to time that I enjoy and I love it, but I don't want it to be something that sucks up all my energy. And it would be nice to like make music again. And like I'm slowly starting to allow myself to come to that like naturally. I'm not like force myself, but like if there's like a random night where I'm like, I'm gonna lock myself in the room and I'm gonna make some music. Like, I want it to be like that again. I want it to be like just organic and fun again, like it was back in the day, without any kind of force.
No, I feel that.
Yeah.
You're gonna essentially pull a Keishanada, because Keishanada does like he does music the full time, but then once in a blue moon he'll DJ at a spot or do like a boiler room, which I think is commendable. I think everyone should do whatever feeds your soul that way. It's pretty dope.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you are at that point too, where it sounds like you are happy and okay with that decision, where a lot of creatives get to that point, but it's not really their choice.
Yeah. Trust me, it's for a while, the transition of this, of being okay with it not being like my main thing, has been tough. And I still have days where I'm like, damn, it'd be dope if I was like, had the effort to like make music again. Cause it was something that has been a part of me since I was a kid, and I loved, and I've had very happy days like working on music. It sucks to like not have an outlet like that. But I have gotten to a good place now where I'm okay. It was a time, and it's still there. It's not like there's artists who like they haven't made an album in 10 years and then they drop something. So maybe that could happen one day. Maybe I can really finish like a dope project one day. Like again, we'll see. But it's okay if it doesn't
you
happen.
make bachata.
Maybe. I don't know about that. But maybe.
So we're gonna do this little thingy-majigger. Did you ever have one of these in your house and not know what was inside?
Absolutely.
Were there cookies inside in your house?
No.
What was in your house?
Like sewing stuff.
Sewing stuff. That seems to be the general, consensus.
It's the best use for it.
Yeah,
like
the
holds the
cookie
spools,
tins
the needles.
has sewing stuff in it. Usually you open it and never actually find cookies in it. We decided to start bringing this and seeing if our guests can figure out, are there cookies? And if you don't think there's cookies, what do you think is inside?
Shit. Damn, is there shots in there?
Is that your final guess?
I don't know. Damn. Okay. I need some hints. Is it more than cookies? What else?
It could be, I mean, I don't know.
I have no idea.
Do you think there's cookies in here?
Maybe. I ate some of those cookies.
Yeah.
Before.
So open it up. We'll see if you get a treat or not today.
Oh, flowers. Oh, it's beautiful. That's a great way to
Listen.
That's awesome.
As we go along, there may be cookies one day, there may not be, because that's what it was when you were at the house. But majority seems to be sewing stuff.
There's
just
cookies
happens.
at one point. Get them, you eat them, and then the box stays forever.
You get the cookies at one point, and then
that's it.
And then you don't get them again.
This is crazy. You know what? This shit makes me want to like order one of these and just have it at the crib.
You have to keep the tradition.
Yeah.
I think these get gifted in for the holidays. That's how they get to the house.
And
I can't really think.
What is Danks? Is that Danish?
It's Danish. It's Danish butter cookies.
Why does all Hispanics love
Why
Danish
do we all?
cookies?
That's what I'm saying. I think it was a holiday thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's definitely Caribbean. Haitians
it's a Caribbean thing.
Yeah. I always had one of those in the crib with the sewing kit, guaranteed for sure.
Because I know we was not going out and buying these cookies. They had to be gifted.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I just bought some this week.
You did not buy these cookies.
Where did you buy
these
them?
cookies?
I promise you.
Where'd you buy it?
It's your fault though, because when you sent me the joint, I was like,
told
you know what? I gotta get a 10 for the crib too.
Yeah. I'm going.
That's funny. That's hilarious because I don't think these were ever purchased. I feel like, at least for me, I feel like my mom was a postal carrier. So she would get gifts around the holidays from all the little people that she comes across on her route. And that's how I feel that this tin ended up in our house. It was a gift.
Don't show the logo. If you guys want an ad, holla at us. We hook you up with it.
We gonna cross you out. We gonna put a tape over this.
We're just gonna come for you.
We got the audience for them. They just got to come holla at us with the ad, guaranteed.
Listen, if they don't know, they should now know to tap into that Hispanic market.
I feel like they know.
You feel like they
gotta know. And they're just like sounding, all right, cool. They probably don't even sell them in Denmark at all. Whatever.
Look, we'll have to figure it out.
We'll figure it out because we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But Mario, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and sharing your musical journey and where you're at with it right now.
Cool. All right, so my name is Mario. Musically, creatively, Telescope Thieves from, you may know, the Love Below crew around Miami, and you are tuned into Growing Up Spanglish.
Yo soy boricua.